Hello, Roger Bisbee here from the Skill Builder channel, and today I'm going to be cleaning a few of my long neglected trowels. I'm no saint when it comes to this sort of thing. I try to keep them clean, but I'm human. Sometimes I finish late and I just chuck them in a van and the next day I regret it. I'm going to give it a go and see if the bicarbonate soda works, because I've used brick acid in the past. A bit too harsh really, and what it does is it eats away at the edge of the trowel. So if you've got a nice plastering trowel, by the time you stick it in some brick acid for a while, you start to soften that edge and you'll find that you get lots of tiny little nicks in it. It becomes almost useless for finishing plaster, unless of course you just grind it smooth again. Now, just for those DIYers, if you buy a trowel, you have got to break it in. They're no good when they're straight out the box, unless they call themselves pre-worn, and that means that the edges have already been sharp and they've already been run off a little bit to give you a nicer edge. But otherwise, you've got to use them on a bit of sand and cement. You've got to rub them on a bit of smooth stone or something like that, just to get that edge into condition. But once you do that, if you can keep them clean, you'll be a lot better off. So I'm going to use the bicarbonate of soda. I've been told that if we use hot water on it, it works a lot faster than if you just use the cold water. I'm going to pour it on the edge. We'll wear eye protection just because I don't know what happens to this stuff when it fizzes up. Certainly if it was brick acid, you'd know when you put hot water with anything like drain cleaner, it bubbles up like crazy and splashes up in your eyes. So always be very, very careful. If you're using a chemical for the first time, you've got no experience of it, I think it's worth taking every precaution you can. Right, well that looks good. Might just stick a little bit more of this one. Trouble is the water washes it off. I'm just wondering if I could actually make up a paste, a sort of thick paste. I might try that later. I might try that as my second experiment and just paint it on with a brush and leave it to do its thing. But other than that, nothing else to do but wait. Okay, it's been in the soup now for 24 hours, so let's just have a look and see what difference that bicarbonate of soda has made, if any. This is the sand and cement one. The badly marked trowel with sand and cement. Yeah. It's starting to soften it. That's promising. I'd say I'd be better off scraping that off and putting it back in for another go, because it's got a lot on it, but it's definitely made an impression. Okay, so let's have a look at the plastering, stainless steel plastering trowel. Whatever's on there still kind of on there. It hasn't had much effect on that, but then bicarb was actually on this side rather than on that side, so it wasn't actually on the blade like that. So I suppose, to be fair, what I've got to do is smear it all over the blade, see if that makes any difference. I think maybe the way to do it is to make a paste and paint the paste on. But in terms of softening all that crud along the edge of the spine, definitely getting there. It's a bit hard on that edge there, and that looks like that's sand and cement on there. What happens with trowels is that bit by bit, the little grains of plaster and sand and cement, if you're using that, as the trowel flexes between the rivets, it gets into that gap there, and then it starts to kind of lever the blade off the spine. The spine is absolutely straight, but the blade will end up slightly distorted because it's got those bits of stuff. So if you can get those bits of stuff out, you're actually better off. I think the other thing that I could try is a bit of white vinegar. It hasn't done an amazing job on that trowel, but it's getting there. Oddly enough, this little gauge and trowel, which was very caked up with sand and cement, is actually pretty clean now. dead impressed with that. That's really good. Okay, let's have a look at this. This is the carbon steel trowel. This was caked up. So I'll take that off there. See what's going on there. That's pretty good. Again, it softened it up enough to scrape it. One way and another, it's done a good job. Blade's pretty good. Could do with a bit of rubbing. So this little fella's bad, but not quite as bad as it was. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave him in there. I'm going to give him another 24 hours because I'm not in any rush to use any of these. Well, I could use that one quite easily now. So I'll give it a little bit more time. Let's come back in another 24 hours and see if it's cleaned that up a bit more. There's still plenty of the guns in there, isn't there? A little patience is called for, I feel. Okay, so now let's have a look. I've added a few more trowels in here so we can just see how they're going. Now this is the plastering trowel, stainless steel plastering trowel. And that looks pretty good. That looks like it's done a reasonable job, but we have to ask how well would that have done if we just left it in plain water, because gypsum plaster like this won't withstand constant immersion, it'll break down. So there wasn't a huge amount to be gained from putting this in. This was the sand and cement. Still left that gritty sand and cement on it, but seems pretty clean otherwise. So that SBR has actually stuck that render, whatever I was using there, it's actually stuck that to the metal surface. Doesn't want to come away. I'm going to have to just run that up and down on a bit of concrete or something just to polish it up. Or alternatively, just use it on a bit of sand and cement work. It's actually cleaned that handle up quite nicely, which I'm pleased about. Yeah. Little gauging trowel, ox gauging trowel. That had sand and cement on it. Still got that bit of sand and cement there, but that again may have been because that was used on SBR. Bit caked up around the handle. But that's all coming off. Here's the other stainless steel trowel that I put in. And this is actually an axis. I think it was the same as the ox. And you can see that back edge there. Whatever's on that back edge is still firmly encrusted on there, and that looks like maybe that was sand and cement as well. Oh no, there's a bit there. I think it says SBR. No wonder some plasterers don't like using SBR because it takes so long to clean it off your tools if it sets. This is my plastic float. This was used on silicone render, and it's cleaned it up a treat, isn't it? Okay, it's cleaned off the silicone render. What's this on here? This looks like a bit of sand and cement. That was the waterproof coating that went around the skirt of the silicone render. That was the grey marble type stuff. So that is extremely durable, but you can see it's actually chipping off the plastic. That'll come off, that'll be fine. But these are throwaway anyway, these things, so I'm not that worried about it. How about this baby? This was solid sand and cement. Look at that, that's disgraceful, isn't it? Anybody that has a trowel like that deserves to be sacked. Trouble is I can't sack myself, can I? I'd love to, but I can't. Now if I put this into acid, it would take that off in no time, I'm pretty sure. But it would also soften the edge of the trowel. And once you soften the edge there, I can run my fingernail down there. There's no real nicks in that. So that's a nice trowel actually. Smaller one. Still needs a bit of work. Sand and cement. That's pretty solid on there. I haven't done much to move that off. Again, that's going to need a dip in some acid. This was sand and cement, and it hasn't actually done anything to help that bricklaying trail back to life. What I'm going to do, I've got a wire brush. I'm going to stick a wire brush on it on the end of a drill and just skid that all off. That'll be all right again, that trail. And that's my old tuck pointer. Again, crusted up. That's a real old one. So it'd be nice to get that one back into. Interestingly, because that one has not been used with SPR, it's only sand and cement, it's actually cleaning up a bit better. I think if I run that up and down on a bit of concrete or something, that'll shine up. That'd be beautiful. So what did I learn from that? Well, I think largely that it was a bit of a waste of time. The acid is a lot better. If you can get some brick acid, not too strong, and don't leave the tools in there, just put them in, leave them in there for 10 minutes or so just to soften it up, just to eat the cement, and then take them out and rub them off. I think the danger comes if you soak them for days on end and then you go back to it and you find you've got no trowel left, just the handle. Anyway, I hope that saved you wasting your time, but if you've tried this and you've got different results to me, I'd be really interested to know what you think. And my top tip would be don't let them get in that kind of state in the first place. So if you know a good way of cleaning up tools, we'd love to know it. I'm Roger Bisbee. Come back and see me soon before I get lonely. And don't forget, newsletter, subscribe, all that stuff, all the things that help our channel grow.